Are you aware of how many things are going on around you right now? How many things your senses are picking up? Sights, sounds, smells, sensations? I guarantee that it's probably a whole lot more than you think. Every second, our senses are picking up approximately 11 million bits of information. That's right, 11 million every second. That's a lot of information, and it's actually too much information for your brain to effectively manage. So how does the brain keep itself from being overwhelmed? Through a process called selective filtering or selective attention. While there are numerous regions of the brain that are involved with processing incoming sensory information, there does appear to be a singular place where everything comes together, and that area is called the thalamus. The thalamus acts like a distribution center. All of the sensory neurons meet there, and their information packages are shipped to their final destination in the cerebral cortex. So, in the process of selective filtering, the sensory organs send signals to the various parts of the brain associated with processing that particular type of signal, visual, auditory, etc. Then that information is passed on to the thalamus, packaged, and shipped to the cortex. The cortex then looks everything over and decides what information is most crucial. And this is where it gets interesting. The cortex then sends the signal back to the thalamus to say, we need more of this and less of that. The message is received by a part of the thalamus called the reticular nucleus. Think of it like a bouncer at a nightclub. Its job is to make sure that all of the things that the cortex wants to pay attention to get through with VIP treatment. And those signals that are not on the VIP list, well, they get blocked by a neurotransmitter called GABA, which prevents them from getting past the velvet rope of the thalamus and into the cortex. So why is all this scientific gobbledygook so important? Well, once you begin to understand how the system works and why certain things stay in our awareness and others get locked out, you can begin to understand the importance of deliberately opening your sensory awareness, and the way to do that is with mindfulness. The thing to remember is that our reality is shaped by the combination of what we think and believe and what we experience and perceive. This is why when you have a specific belief like life sucks, that your brain can only see all of the crappy stuff that happens to you. It's not that good things aren't happening, it's just that the positive news is being stonewalled by your reticular nucleus. So as far as your cerebral cortex is concerned, that information doesn't exist. And this begins a vicious cycle. Once the cortex decides that things are bad, it wants to find more evidence to support that belief, which means that the reticular nucleus gets orders to block anything that is not in support of that view, which strengthens the belief, which increases the blockade, and so on and so on. Now, a real-world example of how this works is the way that algorithms are used on the internet. That's the programming that continues to feed us more and more of what we search for. So let's say you search for men's shoes. You'll get back a search result, and then you will click on the result to view the website. And from that point forward, you will start being shown more and more ads about men's shoes. And the more you click, the more ads you will see. Now, this is part of the idea behind artificial intelligence. It's creating machines that think like humans, and that's the way the human brain actually functions. Now, when you add the algorithm to our natural selective filtering processes, this is when things really can go sideways. The brain is stuck in a negative feedback loop. You think things are bad, so your reticular nucleus is only going to let information that confirms that belief get through the thalamus to the cortex. And because you might be searching for videos or news to confirm that bias, the algorithm makes sure that you get fed more of it on a constant diet, which also gets put into the express lane to your cortex, which strengthens your belief, which increases the information bias, which creates more searching, which gives you more results, which get rushed to your cortex, and so on and so on. Now, this explains why so many people get stuck doom scrolling and can't accept alternate points of view. They literally don't register in their brains or on their screens. But don't lose hope. Selective attention is just a process. It's not inherently good or bad. It's all about how it's used. And that's why it's so important to understand the science behind it. If your brain can get stuck in a negative feedback loop, it can just as easily create a positive loop once you know how.